Well, very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you've all had a wonderful weekend. How are you feeling after the game against Chelsea? Second weekend in a row where we thought we were going to get trounced by a supposedly better team. And we've got a point out of each game against Newcastle and now against Chelsea. Many fans will be saying that both teams were there for the taking and we should have had 3 points in each game. But I don't know. In the condition that we're in at the moment, I think we're playing all right and probably not scoring enough goals. But I guess a point from each game is maybe for some better than we thought we'd get. At least we didn't get beaten. It's not a bad run, but we're not getting a lot of wins, are we? Getting a lot of draws. Will that be enough to keep us up? Well, I don't know. But I'm going to talk about the game later on. Coming up in the show as well, the usual thing: the reviews of the games, the academy games, as well as the women's game, and of course the senior men's game, and all the player updates, injury news, and loan news as well. But I want to start first of all on a subject matter that was part of the build up to the game on Saturday, and that's about a man called Jack Leslie. Look, before the game, a few years ago, I didn't really know who Jack Leslie was, and of course, none other than Nigel Khan himself, the walking West Ham encyclopedia, enlightened me about who he was. Leslie was the first black player in England that was called up in an England squad, but he never got to play for them because no sooner was the offer to play for England offered, it was withdrawn. And many people speculated that's because of his colour. He was posthumously inducted in the National Football Museum's Hall of Fame at the London Stadium ahead of the game against Chelsea. Leslie was born in Canning Town in 1901 to a Jamaican father and an English mother. He started his playing career for non-league side Barking Town, scoring over 250 goals for them. Leslie went on to win the London League title before going on to becoming a goal-scoring great and a captain during his 14 seasons at Plymouth Argyle in between 1921 and 1935. It was during his time at Plymouth that in 1925 that the inside left received a call-up for the England's Home Nations Championship International against Ireland, only for the invitation to be mysteriously withdrawn, with speculation that it was because of the colour of his skin. Despite the huge disappointment, Leslie continued to play superbly for Plymouth for another decade, scoring 137 goals in 401 games, but never selected for England again. So what's this all got to do with West Ham United? Well, he was a local boy. After a serious eye injury that forced him to retire in 1935, he returned to East London and his original trade as a boilermaker in the East India Docks. He then was invited by Ron Greenwood to work in the Hammers boot room in the 1960s and in the 1970s. He worked with the likes of Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, Martin Peters, Trevor Brooking, Billy Bonds, before retiring at the age of 82. And he died in 1988 at the age of 87. On Saturday, as I've mentioned, with just a few miles away from his former home in Gerrard Road, Canning Town, Leslie was inducted into the National Football Museum's Hall of Fame. And there was a pitchside ceremony at the London Stadium where Tim Desmond, the CEO of the Football Museum, was presented with an award to Jack's three granddaughters alongside West Ham legends Trevor Brooking and legend Carlton Cole. So it's a great honour to do that for Leslie, to sort of to commemorate his career and his life. And interesting story, isn't it? That maybe just because of the colour of his skin, he never got invited to play for England again. What a shame. Right, where are you all? I hope you're all well. Let's go in and say good evening to you all. Who's here first? Good evening, usual suspects. I hope you're well. That was always Harry, down to the bare bones, Redknapp's fair. It was indeed. We are down to the bare bones. And I'm going to talk about that later. And I'm also going to talk about whether we've got enough squad depth to cover the possible 6 players that are out injured. Good evening, Mr. McLaren. How are you? Nothing new. Spent most of the season so far playing under an injury crisis, to be honest. Well, it's nothing new, really, is it? I mean, for the years we've I don't know. Is it getting worse? Is it getting any worse than ever before? Good evening, Tasman. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Sharky. How are you? I hope you're well. Good evening, Andy. Another slow January transfer window. More injuries again. This begins to ring a bell. Going to be a real struggle for the squad to cope as European games arrive. That's a good point. But I'm going to talk about the squad later on and see if we can get ourselves through, because there are players coming back. How soon they'll be back? Well, leaves you, for some of the players, I'll leave that to your own imagination. Sharky, Andy, yeah, great. The extra games will make things a bit more difficult. It sure will. Good evening, Black Country. I hope you're well. Told you, Stel, it's coming in the summer, and it's not Kretinsky who's taking over. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if any of you saw the show. I did a show early this morning to talk about the story about Kretinsky having been at the London Stadium at the weekend and apparently met up with the LLDC, etc., etc. I've been told it's didn't happen, and I also saw a copy of a text message that said he was nowhere near the stadium at the weekend. So it's interesting what one person says and what another person then tells you afterwards. So I don't know. I mean, Kretinsky is quite hands-off. Kretinsky is not the sort of person that sort of turns up to watch any games, etc. He's like I've been told, he treats West Ham United as one of his many investments. You know, doesn't treat it much different to anything else. So it's quite intriguing to know what he may or may not do. The story was that apparently he turned up. He's looking at buying the stadium, and of course there's speculation if he does that whether he actually buys West Ham United outright as well. Who knows? I guess time will tell. Well, April will be the first sign when the tax burden on the stadium it goes. If you remember, the board signed up for the stadium with a tax clause in it. If it was to be sold within before March of 2023, there'll be a burden to pay. There'll be a deficit to pay back to the government, I guess. Now, at the end of March, that disappears. Will Sullivan sell? From what we've been told, the Gold family are going to keep hold of shares for another couple of years to see how things go. Sullivan is aiming not to go anywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Tasman again. I think we can forget about any cup competition because this has turned into a battle for survival with that all that's going on. Interestingly, I still think, well, I don't know about the FA Cup. Man United look bang in form, don't they? And we've got to play them away from home. But I still think that the Europa Conference League is there for the taking, despite the struggles that we're having in the league. Good evening to you, Matt. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Good evening, Daniela. So far, Liverpool have beaten Everton. Thank goodness for that. Do keep me informed what the score will be. Good evening, Paul. I hope you're well. Good evening, Mr. Barrett. How are you? Thanks for joining, mate. Matt, again, was Rice offside? Didn't Reece push him into an offside position? If so, why wasn't it looked at? Socha Campbell, don't see what else he could have done in that situation. Arm was near his body. Rice was offside, unfortunately. Socha Campbell, bloody great save, I say. Good evening to you, Foxes. How are you? Same old, same old. The transfer window came and went, and we didn't get what we've wanted for years. It's interesting, isn't it, Foxes? Moyes said we spent all our money in the summer, or we did our business in the summer. I don't know. For me, it's the second January in a row where I think we did need a few more players to come in, even if it was on loan. And I hope that doesn't. It came back to bite us last season when we struggled to compete in all the cup competitions, and we fell just short in the league. I hope it doesn't happen this season, because falling just short in the league could mean relegation. Good evening, Steve. How are you? Evening all. No news from the club today regarding Paqueta or Aguerd, but I see they both did not train today. I'll come to that in a little while. Black Country, still on time. Wow, a couple of minutes here or there doesn't make a difference, does it? You're not going anywhere, are you, Black Country? Well, actually, you might. Good evening, Howard. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Matt, it came off Soucek's knee and brushed his arm. Yeah, exactly. So it was accidental. But it's still a great save. Good evening, Adam. I hope you're well. Good evening, Mr. Bong. How are you? Good evening, Bill. We can't continue to rely on other teams doing us a favour and keeping us out of the zone. We need to start winning. I absolutely do agree. Hammer 89, no updates on the takeover. I still don't think there will be a takeover, to be quite honest with you. Mr. Dodsey, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. What's the truth in the stadium story? How much alcohol did you drink at the weekend? Did the Chelsea fans survive the punch? Oh, dear. I'm sure we've all seen it, haven't we? The truth in the stadium story, I've been told, well, you've also been told, is not true. I didn't drink that much alcohol, to be honest, but those double rums in the Moxie were really expensive, as Pete would know. And did the Chelsea fans have? He sure did, didn't he? He was mocking everyone, wasn't he? On oh, look, let's not go there. But I don't want to say he got what he deserved, because no one should condone violence. But goodness me, he was a bit at it, wasn't he? Anyway, Graham, good evening to you. Feeling more optimistic, but still fed up with our tactics. Good evening to you, Graham. I hope you're well. Steve, been watching West Ham 52 years. This is the most dullest, boring team I've ever watched. Well, you must have had your eyes shut when we were under Allardyce, mate. Good evening, NWO. I hope you're well. Improving at the minute, better than nothing. But it is. A point is better than no points, I guess. It's tough to take. I do agree. Steve, the mouthy plastic fan got what he deserved. Well, that's for you to say. I can't condone that. Of course, 2-0 to Liverpool. Thank you very much. NWO. Jebus, remember when not everything was about race first? Well, yeah. But back then, very different scenario, wasn't it? Steve, well, if Everton lose tonight, we cannot go into the bottom three at the weekend because it's Everton v Leeds. There you go. Always a silver lining. Matt, Spurs away, Forest at home and Brighton away. Still, what are your expectations for the next three fixtures? Spurs away, get a draw. Forest, we fucking got to beat them. Forest at home, we've got to win. And you know what? It's about time we beat Brighton in the league. And I know we haven't beaten them since they've been promoted. God knows how many years now. But I'm gonna stupidly go for 7 points. There you go. How's that? Chelsea should have been free kick given to Chelsea goal. Absolutely, I totally agree. He was taken out, just like they took Paqueta out earlier in the game. Goal difference could come into play at the end of the season, and ours is the best down there. No, it's not clutching at straws. It's a really good point, because ironically, we've got the 5th best goals conceded. If it means that, well, it might mean something. We're the 5th best in the league for number of goals conceded, and I believe the 4 teams who have got better goal difference, I think they're all in the top 6. So not too bad. Martin, a great photo, Jack in the boot room. Thanks. That's all right. I mean, like I said, I didn't know much about Jack Leslie, to be quite honest with you, and it's an interesting story. There's a lot more about him on the Plymouth Argyle football website, so go and look there. And there's a lot more about him on our own West Ham website as well. Good evening. Good morning to you, Alan. I hope you're well. Good afternoon to you, Douglas. I hope you're well too. Daniela, Matt Rainey, sorry. The other 5 teams have hard games, and Leeds play both Southampton and Everton in the next 2 games. The trouble with that, Daniela, is we always say other teams have hard games, and they end up finding a way to get results off them. And then we think we've got easy games, and we end up falling. I hope, I can see it happening. I hope it doesn't. I can see us maybe beating Spurs and then bloody losing to Forest the following weekend. It's the sort of thing that could happen. Good evening, Peter. How are you? Going to need to use some of the under-21s in Europe. I don't know. We might, because Europe is another just over a month away. What are we, the 13th now? Just under a month away before that starts. NWO, Lanzini sits on the bench. Good point. I'm writing up a script for about Lanzini and about Fornals and why they're not being used as much as we think they probably should be. So look out for that. I'll probably put that out tomorrow sometime. Steve, if Paqueta out for Sunday, I'd give Lanzini a game. He hasn't played for a while and loves a goal against the Spuds. Good point. NWO, if we stay up, it will be papering over the cracks. Moyes stays. I don't know, I think the season that we've had, I just wonder what will happen at the end of this season. Moyes will have another year, but I'm not sure don't know if he will stay. Galispera to you, Keith. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Let's say hello to people I haven't said hello to so far. Schmiegel, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Who else we got here? Good evening to you, Anthony. Where did that go? Good evening to you, Anthony. I hope you're well. 15 ings, 10 for Louis Al, hence 25 million plus agent fees is what we spent in the January window. Not enough, though, is it? How did that jump? I thought that this thing didn't jump anymore. Right. Good evening, Fo. How are you? Thank you for joining, mate. Anthony again. Still, we spent over 200 million last summer, including agents' fees. So Ings and Louis Al, another 25 million. They may rush Louis Al up to the first team. Moyes needs to use the under 23s. I know we spent a lot. I'm not disputing that at all. You know, I was actually I was pleasantly surprised that we spent a lot of money in the summertime. I just think it's the January windows. You know, sometimes you just we knew we needed a little bit extra in the January window last season. And even one or two players, even if it was just to bolster the squad, might have made a difference for us. And now in this January, with all the injuries that we've got, again, just another one or two loans just to ease that pain. Because some players are coming back. There are others we've gone searching for them. Trudge, good evening to you. I doubt we paid 2 million for Louis Al. I can't remember what we paid for Louis Al, to be honest with you. It wasn't a lot. It was compensation. It was about $1 million, I think, $1.5 million, something like that. Good evening, David M. What's going on with the queues at security? Mate, it was awful. I mean, I was late to the game, but even when I arrived, it was awful. I do not understand what they're doing. It seems to be getting worse at security. Maybe it was because it was a London derby and they were told to be more vigilant, I guess. Good evening to you, man. Man, don't give a. I hope you're well. To be fair, still that Allardyce team with Sacco, Valencia, Downing and Song was exciting. Yeah, fair. Yeah, I take that back. Fair enough. Yeah, now you reminded me of some of the players that we had under him. That's a good point. I agree with the other guy. It can't get any more boring than this. It's not great. But look, I think I said this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think the minute Moyes realised that the 5 at the back, or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it, is not going to lose him games. I think we're stuck with this for the rest of the season. And I am going to talk about what we should do up front in a little while. Graham, still, it's about time we beat anyone in the league. Well, very true. Yeah, well, we did beat Everton, but people say that don't count because they were rubbish then. Schmiegel, I don't think we will get relegated, but I still think it would be close. I agree with you. For the board, that's good enough, so I doubt they'll be sacking Moyes anytime soon. Well, they certainly don't look like they're going to let him go before the end of the season. Let's see what happens in the summertime. Steve, for the Forest game, I hope Moyes doesn't set up negative. We have to go for the jugular. I 100% agree with you on that. Sharky, Europa Conference League draw next Friday. Is it next Friday? It bloody well is, isn't it? So the teams that are playing the knockout got the first leg this week, and then they got the second leg next Thursday. And then you're absolutely right. The draw happens Friday week. Oh, it's getting a little bit exciting now, isn't it? Something to take our minds off the bloody league. Dabs, Benny and Antonio should be impact subs. Benny's not had a great couple of games lately. So it's a concern. Antonio has improved. I'll give credit where credit's due. Antonio has slightly got better over the past few games. He's finally turned up. Maybe because he's the only available, or he was, until Ings came back from injury, was the only available striker. Maybe that's the trick with Antonio. He's the only available striker and he'll turn up. Happy Valentine's to you as well, Aidan. Who else we got? What else we got? Let's have a look here. Anthony. Lanzini wants to move back to River Plate. Well, no, his father said that Lanzini wants to move back to River Plate. And in fairness, Lanzini said at some point in his career, at the end of his career, Lanzini wants to go back to River Plate. But he could have gone in January if he really wants to go. So there's something interesting going on there with Lanzini and with Fornals. So maybe Moyes not using him possibly. Well, he's in the squad, so, you know, he's there. Use him. Fornals, he seems mostly to help out Cresswell, it appears. That's also a good point. There's my script gone. Bear with me 1 second. That is a good point, actually. You know, will Fornals only play when he's got to provide cover for Cresswell? Seems a bit odd because I think he's a much more useful player in other parts of the pitch than just covering for Cresswell. Man don't give. Happy to keep him now if he's going to keep us up, which I think he's capable of. But can't go on next season like this. We need some proper attacking football back at West Ham. We've got the players. I agree. I do totally agree. Why is my password not being accepted? There we go. Yeah, I agree. We can't go another season with it. I totally agree. But I think we're going to have to accept that this is going to be it for the rest of this season, like it or not. Steve, thing is, still, Antonio never looks like scoring, and he isn't a striker. 100% agree with you. I don't disagree at all. What else we got? NWO. Moyes sets up every game to draw, and we don't start playing until we concede. That's true. It feels like it's true. Robert, use Antonio on the left wing. I kind of still don't agree with that, to be honest with you, because I think Emerson, for example, has been doing exceptionally well over the last few games. So you put Antonio there to sacrifice Emerson. I'm not so sure. I think it's working for Emerson, to be quite honest. And then on the right, if you decide to put him on the right side, who would you sacrifice there? Alan. Dab, sorry, mate, but don't agree about Antonio. He should be moved to Bowen's spot and Bowen benched. He knows he can't be dropped. There you go. You've answered that for me. Victor, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. We have injuries going to play in Europe again soon, Thursday, Sunday. We have seen what happens to clubs that play on a Thursday normally, lose on a Sunday. Will we be safe? Just is what I think. Right. Let's get on to, ironically, after 20 minutes, the first part of the show, and we'll do the match review. Chelsea featured a lot in the games we played over the weekend because we played them 3 times. The women's team played Chelsea, the under-18s played Chelsea, and of course we did as well. So let's start with the women's team, who are in the final of the Continental Tires League Cup. They were in the semi-final of that competition. A win against Chelsea would have taken them to the final, of course, but we got absolutely trounced. We got beat 7-0. 4 goals from Sam Kerr, plus strikes from Fran Kirby and Lauren James. And Guru Raitan saw the Blues progress into the final of this competition. Paul Konchesky decided to name an unchanged team for the 0-0 draw against Arsenal the week before in the Women's Super League. But unfortunately, it didn't do us any good. We were 4-0 down by half-time. And despite making a number of changes at half-time, it didn't get any better, and we suffered a heavy defeat. I hope the women's team get over that. It's a massive defeat to sort of overcome. So I hope that doesn't damage their them too much when they go back into playing the league next week, or the end of this week, sorry. The under-18s, get ready for a shock. They were beaten for the 2nd time in the league this season. They were defeated at the weekend. They lost 3-1 again to Chelsea in the under-18s Premier League South. The team was back in league action for the first time in 2 weeks, having impressively advanced to the quarterfinals of the Youth Cup last time out when they beat Stoke 4-1. Chelsea took an early lead before Callum Marshall scored a deserved equaliser midway through the first half. However, Chelsea went 2-1 up after the break, restoring their lead, and got a third with 20 minutes remaining. Look, despite this defeat, West Ham are still 13 points clear at the top of the Premier League South table. So sometimes you've got to take a little defeat to remind you that it's not a walk in the park. The West Ham under-21s played Fulham. It's all this East London, West London thing, wasn't it? Mark Robson was delighted with the fight's resolve and determination showed by the West Ham under-21 teams in their 1-0 Premier League 2 win over Fulham. Guess who scored? Of course, Divine Mbama, first half finish, his 10th of the season for the development side, earned the under-21s a hard-fought 3 points away at the Cottagers on Friday night. Sorry, it wasn't away. It was at Rush Green. My mistake. In a game of few clear-cut opportunities, West Ham's defence stood strong to keep the visitors out, with Fulham's only real chance coming as the visitors struck the woodwork. Robson admitted Fulham were the better team in the second half, controlling possession, but was pleased with how the young side stood up to the challenge. Having played Fulham in the opening day of the season, we lost 3-1 to them. So Robson can see how far we've come throughout the season. So well done to them. Man of the moment, Divine Mbama. He's got to start playing for the senior team sooner or later, hasn't he? So on to the game against Chelsea, the senior game against Chelsea. The lineup, I guess you probably wouldn't have come and would have been no surprise. It was the same lineup that played the week before against Newcastle. Aguerd, we thought was, Akera, we thought was going to be injured, but he was fit for the game. And as people have been alluding to in the chat, you know, despite our resilience and having such a good the defense and conceding the fifth fewest goals in the league, we're still giving away soft goals. I think their first goal, the one that stood, was an extremely soft goal at the weekend, to be quite honest with you. I don't know what it is about us starting so slowly. We've been doing that quite a bit over the past few weeks where we look sluggish. We did that against Newcastle and then we were chasing the game. We did that again against Chelsea. And had it not been for the offside rule, we could have gone into halftime, you know, couple of goals down. So it continuously puts us on the back foot. And I don't understand, because after they scored and after their disallowed goals, I didn't see much to suggest to me that we were really under the cosh. Chelsea looked like I don't know. I can't say that they pulled their foot off the pedal in any way, because they were still playing the same way. They had an awful lot of the ball. I think they had something like 70% possession or 72% possession, something like that. So they saw an awful lot of the ball, but they didn't really penetrate us too much, especially in the second half. And we kind of looked quite comfortable, and we deservedly got back into the game as well. I thought, you know, the way we played and the way we got back into the game was really good. But I don't understand why. And maybe, as you guys are saying in the chat, you know, we're set up to sort of defend. And we're just not good enough to defend. We haven't kept a lot of clean sheets this season. And it is a bit frustrating to actually get a goal, to actually go a goal down and then have to sort of chase the game. But we looked like we were in it. We never looked, even though we had so little of the ball, we never really looked like we were sort of going to be sort of overwhelmed in any way. I think I have got the stats here. I think that the chances they had, despite all their possession, was something like 12 chances, and we had 10. They had 4 on target. We had 2. You know, so when you look at it that way, it was quite even. It was quite an even game. But I don't really know why we sort of seem to allow teams to score such soft goals against us. It would be nice to start sort of keeping clean sheets for the first 15, 20 minutes of the game rather than having to chase it. And as people are saying, start going for the jugular a little bit as well. Of the 3 difficult games that people said we had on paper, Newcastle, Chelsea and Spurs, it seems that probably the Spurs game is the one that may now worry us more than the other 2. A good performance last week against Newcastle, an all right performance against Chelsea, you know, coming away with a point. But Spurs are going to have something to prove, aren't they, having been thumped 4-1 against Leicester at the weekend. Look, I think we had a lot of good performances on Saturday. I think Kera, for example, who's been much maligned this season, had an excellent game alongside the likes of Soufal, Ogbonna, Emerson, Souček. They all put in really, really decent performances, and you can't knock them for the effort that they put in. And we did really well. We contained them, but as people say, it's up front that seems to be a problem. Someone already mentioned our disallowed goal. People were saying Reece James pushed Declan Rice into an offsides position. I think it was offside. It was marginal, very, very marginal, but I think it was. And then, of course, you know, the best save of the day came from Thomas. My father was a goalie, Souček. I didn't know that. Did you know that? He said in an interview afterwards, my father was a goalkeeper. I must have taught him a trick or two. But I actually think it just hit his knee. I don't even know if did it glance off his hand? I don't know. But it hit his knee first. It was certainly not handball. And all the pundits have been going mad, haven't they? Oh my God, they got away with one, etc., etc. It was all handball, blah, 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 blah. Did they moan so much when we had a goal taken away from us at their ground earlier in the season? I don't think they did they? Look, I know it's not good that we're not winning games, but at the moment, and I don't know if it's consolation or not, we're not losing games. And I think that's really, really important. But we do need to pick up points, as people have been asking. I think someone put on Facebook earlier on, I think we've got something like 9 home games left and predicted that we might win 4 of them. Well, our home form has got to improve. It simply has to be. And we've got some big teams coming up. And like I said earlier, when people said, other teams have got a harder run-in than we have, I don't think it matters anymore. A league game is a league game, a hard run-in or not. You've got to beat who you've got in front of you. And I'm hoping not only the ones that look like we should win on paper, I'm hoping we pick up a couple of wins against teams that we are looking like we shouldn't be either. And maybe Nottingham Forest, Spurs, I think we could come away with at least a point from that. Forest, we've got to win. We've got to win that, because that will actually drag them back down into the mire. I don't think they're out of it at all, even though they've had a pretty decent run lately. I don't think Forest are out of it. I think there are probably something like 8 or 9 teams maybe that are still sort of a little bit in the thick of it. And Forest is certainly one of them. We beat them. That drags them down. And then we've got to go to Brighton, a team that's our bogey team in the Premier League. And we've got to get a result there. I think we can do it. I think it's going to be tight. And like people have been saying in the chat, I don't think it's going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty football between now and the end of the season. And I know what people have also been saying at the weekend. We should have gone for it. Newcastle were there for the taking, and so was Chelsea. But for me, look, it's one of those things, isn't it? If we'd gone for it and then conceded, what would people have been saying then? Because if we hadn't got the points that we got against Newcastle and Chelsea, then we definitely would be languishing in the bottom 3 right now. We need wins, without a shadow of a doubt. It's great that we're becoming more solid and hard to beat, etc., etc. Now we've got to start beating teams. The performance against Chelsea, I think, was good. I think it was all right. I think it was not a bad performance at all. But it's that element at the end, scoring more goals than the opposing team that's doing us in at the moment. Let's go into your chat and see what you have to say. Victor, sorry, you've done that one. Daniela, we have seemed to be having lots of babies born in the West Ham family. Seems a lot of celebrating at the end of last night. So is Emerson's partner pregnant as well? Then I didn't know that. The Europa League Conference League starts for us on the 9th of March. That is a Thursday. Whatever that day is, the first full week of March, that's when the Europa Conference League restarts for us. Schmiegel, Tottenham game would be a bit boring, in my opinion. 2 defensively minded teams, and I doubt it would be high scoring. Moyes needs to grow a pair and have a go at them. I agree. But would you rather walk away with a point? I hate it. I don't want to start. I like flair players. I like us to play with a little bit of flair and game for them. And I know a lot of other teams will go, that in our position will go for it and hopefully reap the rewards. But if we lose there, that wouldn't be good. So I'm really in 2 minds here. A draw wouldn't be bad against Spurs. A win obviously would be wonderful, but I don't want us to go and lose there. Matt, our under-21 striker Mbama looks like a good prospect, but don't think he will break through. I actually do. It's interesting that how we all lost it when Sonny Perkins left us at the end of the season and signed for Leeds, and everyone was going, he's going to be a great player, he's going to be a great player. Divine Mbama is going to be a much better footballer, in my mind, than Sonny Perkins. I think he will break through. I think he's been a prolific goal scorer at every level, and even I think he started playing for the under 18s at the age of 14, 15, something like that. He started playing for the under 21s at the age of 17, and now he's just turned 18. So I think he will. I think he'll break through. I think he'll be one of the players that probably will finally break through the academy. Trudge. He got lucky with Antonio, like finish that came back to him, Mbama. Did he? I don't care, really. I didn't see it, to be quite honest with you, so I don't know how he scored it. Mandy, but Antonio, I think he's got a bit more skill than that, hasn't he, for a young lad? Mandy, if Antonio or Rings don't shine, they feature the next game. If Mbama or any other youth fails to shine, you don't see them again. Is that the way to treat them? Look, I know what people think, but I don't think we're going to see much of our youth players in any league games. Maybe in Europe, depending on who we get. But I don't think you're going to see much of them in the league games. We've got quite a few players coming back. We've got Ings now. We've got Antonio, even though he's always been a makeshift striker. We've got Scamacca coming back. So we do have strikers to choose from. So I can't really see Mbama getting much game time in the senior team in the league. But maybe, just maybe, depending on who we get, you might see a little bit of Mbama, certainly on the bench. And if we're winning handsomely, he might get a few minutes there. Extra training by Nolan required this week. Why? What is that? Trudge again. We need Antonio to stand on Fraser Forster's toes. Oh, that's the extra training that you're referring to. Man, don't give. Now VAR has gone against Arsenal and Chelsea. All of a sudden, things need to be changed. Of course they do, because they've gone against the teams that are relying on getting their points. Is that fair? Too bloody right is fair. They are, they always get the decisions. All of a sudden they don't, and everything has to change. You're absolutely correct there. Matt, Rio claims he's a West Ham fan. Yeah, right. But he was during the build-up. I don't get Rio Ferdinand. Born and bred in the area, played for West Ham, etc., etc. But I can't remember him having a good word to say about West Ham since he left. All this stuff about having all these players having to leave to go and progress their careers, etc. What sort of fan is he, really? Paul Evans. Spuds away to AC Milan tomorrow. Got to attack them on Sunday. That interesting point. Yeah, they've got a Champions League game, haven't they? So is it Champions League or Europa League? I can't remember. I don't follow them, so I don't know. But yes, you're absolutely right. They've got a European game this week. Taz, need AC Milan to smash the Spuds to bring their confidence down to a real low. Actually, correct. Peter, actually, it was Leeds, Trudge. What was Trudge on about? I don't know. But he's answered you. Man, don't give. Did you go to any of the away games? We did indeed. If so, which one was your all three that I went to in the latter stages were brilliant. Seville, Lyon, and even though we lost Eintracht Frankfurt, it's got to be Lyon. The performance and the atmosphere. The atmosphere in Seville was superb, but the performance and the atmosphere at Lyon was just dynamic. It was great. They were all fantastic. Great away days. Absolutely. Mark Watson. Spurs fans are moaning that Conte is too defensively minded. I'm laughing too. Should be an exciting game on Sunday. Isn't he recovering from illness or something like that? Well, best to him. Steve, Moyes will set up for a point against Spurs, and I think we will get beat, I'm afraid. Souček in the middle, Antonio up. Well, let's give credit where credit's due, because I think Souček has had a couple of excellent games. He was brought in as a sub for Paqueta's injury, and we did all go a little bit, oh no. But you know what? I think he actually played okay. I think he played pretty decently, to be honest with you. He does the sort of stuff that people, because Souček in his first season scored 10 goals, we're kind of expecting that to happen every season. But what I think people miss is the dirty work that he does in the middle of the park. I think he was great at breaking up their play. He got involved. He got stuck in. He was, if that, he would have scored if that wasn't an offside. So he was at the right place there. I think he's done all right lately, to be honest with you. And maybe it needed him to have a few games on the sidelines to sort of remember that his place isn't guaranteed starting place. Good evening, Trini. I hope you're well. If we do not stay tight and difficult to break down against any team, you ship more goals than you score. That's why most teams in the Premier League are not easy to break down. Yeah. And we're not easy to break down either. And I think that's a good thing. We needed that. We needed to stop that sort of that being beaten on a regular basis. Tasman, Anton has a story on Hammers Chat Patreon. When we beat them and Rio didn't go to the box after the game, he texts his mum from Man U. Yeah, he's not. I'm sure he's a West Ham fan, but I don't know. Is he? Thank you, Mandy. By the way, if you're new to the channel, I forget to always do this. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. I'm always useless at doing that. So thank you for that reminder, Mandy. Alan, Mbama will break through when we get a manager that knows how to play him. Same as most of the players we have now. This is an interesting thing. Now, we keep going on about Moyes. Moyes doesn't play the youth. A lot of Premier League managers don't play the youth. It's not just Moyes. I think because we sort of see it in front of us, we're in that West Ham bubble. We think we're the only team in the Premier League that doesn't break the youth through. Now, I'm not suggesting that makes up for Moyes not breaking the youth, but you look at other teams around and they're much the same in the Premier League. Not that many players, unless you're exceptional, like a Declan Rice, etc. You're not likely to break through. Jason Mendelli, good evening to you. Got to stick with what we're doing. Going for it every game has left Leeds in their position. Good point. Yes, a little bit more positive, like Ings coming on for Benny and switch Antonio to the wing. This is it. Now, Leeds, everyone is admiring Leeds the way they play. They're going for it. They're going for it. They're sitting below us at the moment in the league. So, or are they just above us? Or they're certainly down there, aren't they? Peter, Rio was born in bandit country, Beckham. Man, don't give. Leon trip was great. I agree. Only bad thing about was being kept in the stadium for. Yeah, well, I don't know if you were there, then you'd know that they burnt their seats, didn't they? Opposite us. They didn't show that on TV. They burnt their seats opposite us, and then apparently they were trying to break through in the away end. Went outside the stadium and they were being tear gassed and everything. I think that's why we stayed a couple of hours behind, to be quite honest with you. And I'll be really honest, I didn't mind that at all. I would have got home or back to the hotel in one piece. But it was a great away day. Good evening, Garrido. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining. Trodge, Sojek passes like KRETINSKY, but he did all right this time. I think he did. I think he played pretty decent at the weekend, to be quite honest with you. Let's scroll down. Mark Watson. I think the Spurs game could suit Souček, but we need to go full out attack against Forest, so he should not start. Well, it depends on who we're going to have. And there are options, and I am going to get to team lineup and the players that we've got available and all that sort of stuff in a moment. So bear with me until I get through the comments. All kicked off at Anfield. What's going on? Someone keep me updated. I don't know what's going on. But good. I hope Liverpool are still winning. I don't like Liverpool, but I hope they're still winning. Let's go into the next part of the show, and that is all about players. Right, player news. I mean, we're so short of stories this week. This is the final part of the show. But the final part of the show is to talk about. We're going to come to injuries in a moment. We're going to talk about loan players first, and then we'll go on about injuries, and then talk about the teams or the team that I think we should be lining up if all the injured players are not back in time for the weekend. So let's start with loan news. First off. No stories on Masuaku at the weekend because he was suspended. Yeah, he got 5 yellow cards in the Turkish league and he was suspended. So let's go on to Nikola Vlasic. He played for Torino in the 1-0 defeat against AC Milan at the weekend. Former Chelsea and Arsenal striker Olivier Giroud, who's now 68 years of age, scored the winner just past the hour mark. Vlasic was unable to add to his 6 league goal contributions this season, but although Torino still sits 7th in the table with 7 points from their last 5 matches. So they're not doing too bad, are they? Next up, another 90 minutes for Connor Coventry on his loan spell at Rotherham United in the Championship. He was in the team that battled a hard-earned valuable point against Blackpool at the weekend, maintaining his unbeaten start while on loan at the club. In his first 2 fixtures at Rotherham, Coventry has seen consecutive goalless draws, featuring 90 minutes each of them against Sheffield United and Blackpool. The Rotherham were unbeaten in the last 3 fixtures, so they sit 20th, not good for them, in the table and are 4 points clear of the Championship relegation places. So he looks like he's making an impact in the centre of the park. Jacob Knightsbridge, one of our on-loan goalies, on loan to Harrow Borough, is currently leading a double life, and I'll tell you why. He not only plays for Harrow Borough, which is a non-league team, but he was also on the subs bench for the under-21s in their win against Fulham at the, last week as well. Now, I didn't know you could play for 2 teams in the same season. I don't understand how that works. So I'm only guessing that because Harrow Borough are a non-league team, he's eligible to play for them whilst still being selected for our teams as well. Isn't that weird? Anyway, Harrow Borough went to a 2-0 defeat against bottom of the side North Lee at the weekend. So unlucky for him. Mipo Odebeko, remember him? He came on in a cameo role for his side, Port Vale, who slipped to a 3-2 defeat at the weekend. No, he doesn't play for Port Vale. Yes, he does. The young striker made a cameo appearance featuring in the last 8 minutes, although against Shrewsbury. But unfortunately, he couldn't impact on the game and they lost 3-2. They're now 15th in the league, winning 10 of their last 30 fixtures so far. So they're not doing that well either. Thierry Nevers at Bradford City. He came on in the dying minutes of the game against Stevenage, which they lost 3-2. And despite his brief 1-minute appearance, he managed to get himself booked. That win for Bradford took them to 8th in the league and a point off potential playoff position. So well done to them. What about our players in our squad? Well, Gianluca Scamacca, last week he went back to Italy, to Rome, to see a specialist on his knee treatment. He's now back from there and is back training with the senior team. There's a 50-50 chance that he might be available for the game against Spurs at the weekend. I think quite possibly he might just be named on the bench, but at least it looks like he'll definitely be back for the game against Nottingham Forest. His treatment has gone well, no side effects, etc. So it's good to have him back. As we saw against Chelsea, Aguerd went off, as well as Lucas Paqueta went off with an injury. It's thought that Aguerd has got a hamstring injury, but scans at the moment have not yet determined the extent of that injury. He had scans today on Monday, and we should have the results. We should know the results either later tonight or we should know tomorrow on Tuesday. If there's any element of encouragement, he did go straight to the subs bench to sit out the last few minutes of the game. And it's thought he was subbed more as a precaution than anything else. If it's only a grade 1 strain, Aguerd should be back in training this week. You know, you should be a grade 1 hamstring. A couple of days rest will suffice. And then you're back training again. So fingers crossed. We had the same situation last week, didn't we, with Thilo Kehrer after his injury against Newcastle, but he was declared fit. He was training at the end of the week and was declared fit for the game against Chelsea. So if it is precautionary, I think we'll expect to see Aguerd playing. And boy, oh boy, are we going to need him. Lucas Paqueta looks to be a little bit more serious, though. We're awaiting the results of the scans that were taken today. If the injury is similar to the one that he sustained back in October, then he's likely to miss at least 3 games with a possible return back into action against Brighton in a few weeks' time. So hopefully we'll know a little bit more. If anyone has found out anything tonight, do let me know in the chat. But it looks like Aguerd could be back for the game against Spurs because it doesn't look too serious. Paqueta quite possibly may miss that game. Now, what's this, I hear you ask? Well, I didn't know until I was told what the hell it was. That's Kurt Zuma publishing a photo of himself in a Normatec compression boot over the weekend. That thing that says, I don't know, Normatec, I don't know, you can sort of see it, where it says blue lock above, and then you look down the side, it says Normatec, and that's a compression boot, and he took a photo of it. Great, I hear you say. The West Ham central defender suffered a slight tear to his thigh, and he's battling to get match fit again. The manufacturers of the boot claim this boot helps decrease inflammation and muscle tension, as well as reducing recovery time, swelling, and water accumulation. The compression boot leads to an increase in motion, movement quality, better mobility, and better blood circulation. So although we're not yet certain what grade of injury Zuma has had, we know that a grade 1 strain would have kept the player out for at least 3 weeks. It has been 3 weeks since he sustained the injury against Everton. The compression boot is there for recovery, so it looks like he suffered a grade 2 tear in his thigh, which means that he won't be back for the Spurs game. It is unlikely to be back for the Forest game either. And he could be back in time for the Cup game against Man United, or most definitely against Brighton on the 4th of March. Now, have you seen this man? No, neither have we. It's weird. It's 2 weeks since Maxwell Cornet returned from France to Rush Green. where he was then sent straight back to France to continue his rehabilitation. Now, 2 weeks ago, David Moyes said he's 60, 70% fit. And then since then, we've heard nothing, no updates at all as to when he's likely to return to first team action, if at all. It's really an odd one, this one. It's we hear something. I mean, we've had, what, 2 or 3 false dawns with Maxwell Cornet so far? Look, I don't blame players for getting injured. You get injured, you get injured. You can't help that. But it just seems a little bit weird. Like the training that he was doing, gym training that he was doing a few weeks back, was quite thorough, quite intense. And apparently he suffered no impact on the calf muscle injury that he had. And we thought that him coming back to Rush Green would be the start of his actual return. But the fact that he's returned to France and nothing heard since is a bit of a concern. And a player that has come back is Alphonse Areola. He was spotted in training with the rest of the squad today on Monday. With the FA Cup ties looming against Man United, as well as going back into Europe in early March, his return is definitely timely. Lucas Fabianski has been in fine form this season. You can't fault him. I've been one that's been advocating to have Areola as our first choice keeper, but you can't deny we've actually got 2 first choice keepers in the squad, which is fantastic for us. And I'm sure he's going to certainly play his part in this second half of the season to be back. The only other concern at the weekend was Aaron Cresswell, who missed the Chelsea game because of a virus. But we believe he'll also be back and available for the game against Spurs at the weekend. And of course, we heard Declan Rice woke up with a virus on the morning of the game against Chelsea, but he played the game. He didn't look to be at his best, and now we know why. But he was in fine form in the evening because he had presented an award at the Brit Awards. So he should be absolutely fine for the game against Spurs at the weekend. So with all these injuries and a number of... Actually, you know what? I'm going to go into your chat before I go into my predictions of lineups, etc., for this weekend. So what's happened at Anfield? Someone tell me. Garino, Tarkowski has been god-awful for Everton. Liverpool could have had a hatful, and we wanted him. Pickford, yellow card. Matt, if Paqueta isn't available for Spurs, I'd play Downs and Rice together and bring Fornals, Souček on if Downs needs to be subbed. It's good choice, interesting choice. I don't disagree with that either. But Downs won't start, will he? And I'll come to who I think could be given game time. Steve, Matt, I'd give Lanzini a go. So would I, and I don't understand what's going on there. Good evening, Simon. Thank you for joining, mate. I hope you're well. Trodge, Scamacca, let's get your comment up. Really just misses his home cooking, wouldn't you? Tim, nice. But Tim, good evening to you. You used to be on West Ham Network. Why did you leave those guys? That was a long time ago. I just wanted to go it alone and do my own thing. And hopefully you're enjoying doing my own thing. Subscribe, Tim. Thank you very much. So 4 minutes extra, played 2 already. So that we're still out of the bottom 3, sorry. Liverpool, Everton was boring. Well, apparently it all kicked off. Good evening, Robert. Still didn't like... You know me so well. Shraj, so this is Zuma's secret. Why he always comes back early? Well, it's no secret. Apparently, it's quite a thing. I don't know anything about compression boots or anything like that. Let's hope it gets him back. Well, it'd be great if he got him back by the weekend. NWO. Zuma sacrifices cats, uses voodoo magic to heal quickly. Flaubert, Cornet's money. No, I can't. No, with the greatest of respect. Yeah, you know, no, Pete, no, rubbish. I don't agree with that. I think it's, look, I don't think players put on getting injured. I think it's a bit of a myth that if we really think that players feign injuries not to play. I don't know. I think it was clearly a bad enough injury to keep him out for so long. But what's going on now is my question. Matt, is Fabianski going to extend his deal to 2024, or is he going to try? There is an option to extend it another season. As much as I love him, no, really no. NWO still wanted to play with him. Mark, should Benny be dropped for the Spurs game and be used as an impact sub? I'm coming to that. Man, I agree with you on corner. Players can't, You can't blame them for getting injured. Get an injury, you get an injury. It's really, I think how the player must feel, but they get paid. It's in their contracts. They just don't get their bonus fees and stuff like that. Right. So let's look at the sort of team that could line up if we have all these players still out injured. So we got Areola. Well, he's back now, so we know he's okay. So we got another 5 there. We've got Zuma, Cornet, Scamacca, Aguerd, and Paqueta. Of those 5 players, I think it's quite possible there's a 50-50 on Scamacca and there's a 50-50 on Aguerd. Let's say, for argument's sake, those players are not available. And this is the lineup that I think quite possibly what Moyes may do. Not a lot different to what he's been playing so far against Spurs. The only question mark, potentially, is who he plays on the left side of central defence if Aguerd is out. And he's got an option. Johnson, he came on, and I think, again, another player that's been much maligned throughout this season. But when he's been called upon in the last few games, I think he's done rather well. I think he's done pretty decent, to be quite honest with you. So he's got that option. He's got Ben Johnson. He could, if he wanted, to go with Cresswell. Now, look, I don't necessarily have too much of a problem with Cresswell playing as a left-sided centre-back because you don't necessarily require speed in that position. He was caught out awfully in the game against Brentford when he was playing at left back. But you play him as a back 3. We've seen Cresswell do reasonably okay in the past in that position. And you've also got Emerson as a bit of a backup. I think someone said earlier in the chat, that one of the reasons why maybe Fornals has been used a lot on the left side is cover for Cresswell. And I think you're absolutely right there, to be quite honest with you. So that might be the lineup I think may start against Spurs. But there are a couple of question marks without a shadow of a doubt. One is, as someone has just mentioned, Ben Rama. He hasn't had a good game in the last few games. He's been a bit he's gone missing a little bit. And there is the possibility of calling in players like Fornals or maybe Danny Ings, and then maybe shifting the lineup around somewhat. And you could have maybe something like this. You could go for a 4-4-1-1. Again, more or less the same sort of players, but in different formations. Again, on the left side could be Cresswell with the cover of Emerson, because I don't think Moyes will play Cresswell on his own if he doesn't have that sort of cover. And Emerson playing as a left wing back, defensive left wing back, could be a good cover for him. And then again, you could have sort of like a 4 at the back with Ogbonna and Kera in the centre, Soufal on the right hand side, and then the 2 in the middle. I think will be Souček and Rice. And I know people are talking about, we'll use another player, etc., Lanzini and so on. But I think, where's Lanzini? I forgot to add him in. Lanzini and so on. So I think it will be Souček and Declan Rice. Now, you could also, and I think this is something that Moyes should really seriously consider. If you go for a 4-3-2-1, a 3-4-2-1, isn't it time? Well, we're doing okay-ish in defence. Like I said earlier in the show, we do concede early, which is a real bugbear. It's a really annoying. But generally speaking, we do all right in defence. And the sort of the back 3 / back 5 is doing us okay. But it's up front that we're suffering. We're creating a lot of chances. We're not putting away a lot of chances. And that's the biggest concern of all. And I think maybe it's time for Danny Ings to start a game. When he came on in the game against Chelsea and the few times that we've seen him play for West Ham so far, something changes up front. He knows where to move. He's a natural striker. So he was telling players where he wanted the ball in the game against Chelsea. He was pointing, put it there, I'll get onto it, etc., to create space, to sort of get behind the defenders and so on. Because he's naturally, as we know, Antonio isn't a natural striker, whereas Danny Ings is. He knows the runs he needs to make and so on. Now, you could play him alongside Antonio and Bowen, because Benrahma is not having the best of times at the moment, but not so much as a winger as people have been saying for Antonio, but more as a 2 behind the striker. And that could work. That could work. You've got proper defensive cover with Emerson in front of whether it be Johnson or Creswell. On the right-hand side, you've got Sufal, who's been doing pretty well. He's linking up pretty well with Kara as well. You've got the ever-reliable Ogbonna in the middle. And then I think it will be Souček whilst Paqueta's out. Souček and Declan Rice in the middle. And then change it up front, because we're doing okay in midfield. We're doing okay in defence. We don't necessarily, apart from those stupid goals that we concede early on, other than that, we're kind of doing all right. It's up front that we're suffering, and we do need to start scoring goals. So I just wonder whether something like this may be in the offing against Spurs at the weekend. I think Ings needs to start. I think we need a natural goal scorer on that pitch from the start of the game, get the game won, and then take Ings off after 60 minutes, and then, put someone else on that might be a little bit more defensive minded. But I think that's quite a possibility at the weekend. And this is only if the players under injuries are all injured. Like I said, forget Aguerd. Forget Areola. He's back now. But given that we've got Zuma out, you need defensive cover for that. So Zuma and Aguerd being out. So you're going to have to, you've almost got no choice. You've got a selection of 4 players there of Kara, Ogbonna, Ben Johnson and Creswell. So if he's going to stick with the back 3, he's going to pick 3 out of those 4. And I think it will probably be Ben Johnson over Creswell, to be honest with you. And then the 4 in the middle, Sufal and Emerson is doing well. And then you'll have Souček lining up alongside Declan in the middle. But it's up front. It's up front. Benny hasn't been doing it. He's been off. He's been off it for the last few games. So that needs to be a little bit different. Could it be Antonio and Ings and Bowen as the front 3, or the 2-1? Be nice to see it. It'd be interesting to see it. And I actually think that will give us a little bit more impetus, a little bit more momentum up front, which could get us the result that we need. We can still play the same style, but with Ings up front, it gives you a different option. It gives you something different to be aiming for up front. And like I said, his natural movement as a striker will probably bode us well. Right, let's see what you've got to say. Mark, should Benny be dropped? I've just answered that. So tell me what you think of that. Man, don't agree with you on Cornet. Yeah, Simon. So disappointed with Benny not playing well and not cementing his place. Good to see Antonio playing well and not falling over. Antonio's changed his mindset since the January transfer window is shut. You remember all the stuff that he was saying during the window? Virtually almost begging people to put in a bid for him. And now he's kind of just been told, look, knuckle down. Let's see what happens in the summertime. But you're a West Ham player. Get on with it. And he's done just that. And fair play to him. Is Cornet on... Jonathan, is Cornet on strike with his fellow natives? No, he's injured. Nothing you can do about it. He's injured. Taz, the chat are saying that Benny is a good impact sub. Did they realise that's what Moyes said? Isn't that weird, Taz? You're absolutely correct. Very, very true. When Benny was on fire and Moyes was saying he's a good impact sub, people were like, you've got to play him. You've got to play him. And I'll be honest, I was one of them. I think you did have to play him. But he's just lost form for the moment. But Bowen's not doing that much better himself. He's doing all right, but even he's not doing that much better himself. Good evening, Learn to Dig. I hope you're well. BBC says Antonio's our most creative player still. Hardly fits your narrative, though. Well, I don't agree that he was our most creative player, but I think he's been doing an awful lot better in the past few weeks, without a shadow of a doubt. Matt, Harvey Barnes, 35 to 45 million pounds. Yes or no? Little bit too much for him, but not a bad player. Jonathan, not a 50-50 on our chances winning the games. Not a 50-50 on our chances winning the game. Well, all right. Matt, had high hopes for Cornet, but season almost done, but don't want to write him off. He could come back for the tail end of the season and still deliver for us. NWO, drop Souček, drop Benny, bring in Downs and Lanzini. I don't disagree with you, but I think Souček has kind of earned his place back in the team. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think he has played pretty well. I like Downs. I think he's a great talent, without a shadow of a doubt. Lanzini, as I said earlier on, I don't know what's going on with him. Man, don't. I don't think Johnson... I'd put Johnson, Ings and Downs in place of you-know-who. I like Ings, I've said. Downs, I know a lot of people are calling for him, but I do think Souček, he'll go with Souček. It's kind of what he knows, isn't it, Moyes? And Johnson, I think Johnson has been doing well. That's an awful defense. Well, that might be the only defense we've got, Trodge, to be quite honest with you, because if Aguerd is out injured and Zuma's still out injured, you've only got 4 options. Well, our back 5 will consist of Soufal, Kera, Ogbonna, Johnson or Creswell, and Emerson. There's no other. There's no other choice unless you decide to play. Declan Rice back there. Well, yes, NWO. Yeah, defensive central midfield. Defensive central mid. Yeah, a lot of people have been suggesting that. And yes, I agree. I think he's got a nice pass of the ball. It's got a good touch. It hasn't done Declan too bad, has it? And a lot of central defenders do move into some interestingly, into a central defensive midfield role. I think he could do pretty well there. Yeah, definitely. NWO. Sure, Antonio would like a partner to play with and play off. I agree. But Moyes is risk averse, isn't he? Good evening to you, Bees Knees. I hope you're well. Glad we didn't sign Tarkowski and Onana. Onana has been a massive disappointment. Tarkowski, he had his chance, didn't he? He would, we could have got him at his prime. Garino, if I can get your comment up, mate. There we are. Zuma is back on the grass. No wonder he can't play. I mean, if he's on the grass all the time, is he back on the grass? That must be news to me because I didn't know that. That boot photo was taken only at the weekend. Garino shouldn't be out for too long. Which one are you? Who out of all those are you talking about? Bees Knees, yeah, I agree. Ings should start now if he's fit enough. I think Spurs is the sort of game that you go, you know what? Let's give it a try. As people have said, they play quite defensive. They're quite defensive minded as well. Go for it. That in a way, ironically, that sort of setup there is still defensive minded, but you've got an outlet up front. So why not go for it? Man down. Downs must be disappointed with Moyes. Excuse me. I would love to see him getting a run of games in the league. Moyes gives a new player a 20-minute or game or so, and if they don't perform, won't see them again. Well, interestingly, I don't think Downs has let us down, to be quite honest with you. Pardon the pun. Garino, prefer that lineup with Ings up top. Yeah, I think there's no reason why at the weekend, if we don't have other options, if we've got all those other players injured, there should be. Oh, that Lanzini is there. I've just seen him. We've got Lanzini for now, so we don't have that many options. I think Barma will be on the subs bench at the weekend if Scamacca's not back. By the way, the lad next to him is Levi Lang, an under-21 central defender, by the way. And then people might be asking, why is Luizão, our new Brazilian signing, not there? Levi Lang is slightly more advanced than Luizão, which is probably why you might see Levi Lang on the bench if we do have all those injuries. Let's go back to your comments. Let's just get rid of that. Garino. But put Downs in the midfield next to Rice if Paqueta is out. I don't disagree with that, but I do think that Moyes will opt for Souček. E. Davis, good evening to you. Need a 4-4-2 when Scamacca returns. I don't disagree with that either. Will David Moyes do that, though? We know he won't, unfortunately. Man don't. If Ings don't score at least a hat-trick in the 20-minute period he gets at the end of each game, Moyes will never give him a chance to play 90 minutes. Well, he has got to learn the game, hasn't he? It takes time to bed him into the Premier League. It takes time to bed him into West Ham. I reckon he might get a whole game. What, last few games of the season? Kidding, of course. Anthony, Moyes is so stressful. I need to be on grass this season. Do you know what? I'm no longer stressed by it. What will be, and I don't mean to be defeatist by that or whatever. But we still need. I said we need 6 wins and three draws to be okay. We've had 2 draws and we still need 6 wins. I think we'll just get there, and it will be as the season continues. It will become more and more stressful, without a doubt. Sharky, back 4, I would prefer 2 up front. I think a lot of people would, but we know that David Moyes won't do it. So don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that this sort of formation and lineup is the formation and lineup that I would want. You know, for me, I'd probably go with a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1. I would prefer that, something like this. Like I said earlier, two lines of four, and then whoever it might be. I've got Ben Rama and Antonio there, but you could have whoever. You could have Antonio behind Ings or whatever. I prefer that too, but we kind of know that David Moyes won't necessarily do that. Mandone, Moyes said about Emerson that he's been performing better recently. It's only recently he's been given a true. Mark, agree. Ben Rama should not start on Sunday. Might give a kick up the backside to come roaring back for Forest. I don't understand it. Ben Rama, you know, he almost proves Moyes right, doesn't he? You know, because when Ben Rama's dropped, everyone loses it and goes, Ben Rama should be playing. And then Ben Rama comes in. He has a couple of really good games, deserves his place in the team. And then he drops his form again and almost proves Moyes right that he's inconsistent. And that, I hate that because I like Ben Rama. But, his performances, hot, cold, almost proves David Moyes correct. And he has been given a chance as well recently. Anthony, Moyes will never play 4-4-2. He said to play two up front. He needed to play a black three. Yeah, he still doesn't really do that with front players. He's gone to a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, which I think is really quite interesting. It's an interesting formation because it certainly makes sense because when we drop, when we don't have the ball, it goes to a back five. And almost like a 5-4-1. So it reverts from a 3-4-2-1 to a 5-4-1. And it kind of works when we're defending, but it's awful when we're not defending, when we're trying to be on the attack. Because I looked at the game on Saturday. When we were defending a corner, there was no one even on the halfway line. So if we broke the ball free, there was no one there to pick it up. And it reminded me of a couple of games over the past, game this season against Palace, when Palace scored their winning goal against us this season. I think they had three players hovering around the centre circle. And if the ball broke free from a corner that we took, they were there to pick it up and score. But we've done that. It reminded me of a couple of seasons back when we played Chelsea, when Antonio and Yarmolenko were a little bit further up front. I can't remember. I think Chelsea had a corner. We broke free, and then Antonio flicked it to Yarmolenko, and he scored that great goal. So that works. So I kind of looked at it and thought at the weekend, we've got everybody back. If that ball breaks free, it's going to come straight back at us. And that's really disappointing, to be honest with you. But this 3-4-2-1, I'd rather he did do maybe a 3-5-2, and have the two up front, loitering around the centre circle if we're defending the corner, etc. Or two players. It doesn't have to be the strikers. Two players to give defenders something to think about if the ball breaks free. Peter, Ings must start to hold the ball up and positional play is way better. It absolutely is. And I'm sure you saw it at the weekend as well, Pete. When he got the ball, he knows what to do with it as a natural striker. He knows where to go with it. He knows how to move, draw defenders away, etc. Daniela, I know I'm grasping at straws, but 2 wins and a draw in the next 3 games, we could be out of the relegation battle. I don't think we will be. Simon, Spud's no pace at the back. We must attack. Well, this is it. And so you think about, with no pace at the back, who would... You need someone like Ings to draw him out. But Bowen's got a little bit of pace. Ironically, Ben Rama's got a little bit of pace as well. He could actually cause them trouble. There's the irony. What's going on with Fornals? Like I said earlier in the show, I'm going to do a show about Fornals and Lanzini and then speculate as to why they're not getting more game time. Do you remember the goal Fornals scored against Leicester during lockdown a couple of seasons ago when the ball broke free? And he controlled it, one-touch control, and then he smacked it into the bottom corner of the goal. That's the sort of thing we need, isn't it? We don't seem to have a player that, and Fornals hasn't got a lot of pace, but we don't seem to have a player that just seems to want to run at defenders at the moment. Ashley, good evening to you. Moyes might not have to play the centre-back we signed from a Brazilian club as he's in. Moyes might have to play the centre-back we signed as he's included in the squad. He is indeed, but I don't think he'll get game time, to be honest with you. Moyes will sooner mix what he's got available to him around rather than playing the under-21. I don't know how good he is. I'm not really taking a lot of time to watch any of the under-21 games that he's played in this season, and he's been a regular starter for them as left-sided, either a left-back or a left-sided central defender. But I don't think he'll get. I don't think he'll get game time. Moyes has got 4 options. God forbid we have any more injuries. If Aguerd's not back and if Azuma are not back over the next few weeks, then those are the 4 options he's got at the back. He's got Kera, he's got Ogbonna, Ben Johnson, and Creswell, and he'll mix those around rather than playing an under-21 player. Good shout though. Don't forget, Daniela, Spurs are now under pressure with the result versus... Well, this is what I said earlier on. You know, Spurs are going to want to get revenge in a way. They're not going to want to... they're not going to take that lying down, are they? That 4-1 defeat. They're going to want to come out all guns blazing at the weekend. Bees knees. Defence is a big worry. Down should be alongside Rice, not up front. I agree with you there. Ironically, like I said earlier in the show, defence isn't really a big worry because we've got the 5th best record of conceding goals in the league this season, and that's the irony. We're just not scoring enough goals, so it isn't so much that we're conceding a lot of goals, but it's more that we're not scoring a lot of goals. Good evening to you, Gall boy. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. I do apologize. Do we not have an academy? Do we not have an academy central defenders? We do indeed. Levi Lang, as I said, he's there next to Mbama on the subs bench there. Levi Lang is one. We've got, his name's gone. We've got another one. Jamal Baptista's come back after a long spell away from the team, who's a great prospect. And of course, the young Brazilian that you've just mentioned, Luizão as well. Jonathan, so we're going to play all men behind the ball with punts up the pitch for Antonio to chase. After with Ings coming on at 75 minutes when Antonio's blown out of his arse and Ings doing nothing. Well, I don't think Ings does nothing. I think Ings needs to start a game and see what he can do from there on. Where did that go? Wow, that's a big drop. Good evening to you, Jerry. I hope you're well. So don't worry. You know, I'm never early myself. Just watched the Liverpool game. Wasn't very. Yeah, I've heard that. Crafty Dave. Good evening to you as well. I'm still Moyes out. Unfortunately, he's still Moyes there. NWO. Ings ain't got the legs for it. He ain't, but he's a clever player. He knows how to move. He's a clever attacking player. He knows how to get around central defenses, etc. So it's for his creativity. You know, the way he moves, the way he's as a natural striker, I think is more the reason why I'd have him starting. More likely to put on KT Lang. Good evening, James. How are you? Isn't it about time we cut Zuma loose after all these injuries? He's not reliable at all. Well, maybe, but we spent a lot of money on him, so we're going to try and get blood out of a stone. Anthony, but Luizão played about 18 games in the Brazilian top league. Lang has not. The Brazilian top league is probably, I don't know, it's probably on par with what? Scottish Premier League, maybe, at best. Am I putting the Scottish Premier League down? Paul H. Should get these porcelain dolls playing a bit of rugby. Might toughen the poor darlings up. That's it, Paul. You get Cornet in a scrum and see how his calf muscles do then. Jerry, I agree still. I'm not stressed out. What will be, will be. I can't be stressed anymore. It's funny. Someone was going on at the weekend on Facebook and was going and said, well, you're all going to be laughing or whatever it was he said when we're playing the championship. And I thought about it for a minute and I thought, you know what? I'm West Ham, as we all are. We're still going to support West Ham, whatever league we play in. I ain't going to be happy about it, you know, if we do get relegated, but you're still going to go, aren't you? You're still going to watch them. You know, we'll just moan if we're in the championship. I don't think it will happen, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that it will, but we'll still support them. So what's the point of getting stressed out? Mandy, Conte knows there's a back three with Rice and Souček. He definitely will know that without a shadow of a doubt. Martin, 6 wins sounds like a lot. I'm not sure I can see 6. We're going to have to, because if we don't get 6 wins, at the very least, we will go down. Victor, I'll get your comment up. It doesn't matter what system we play under Moyes. He's a defensive-minded coach who could have 9 attacking players in the team. Moyes will still be defensive. Trodge. Weird, we are being linked to more Brazilian players with such a defensive manager. I know. Well, that's because Rob Newman has got to earn his money. He's set up a Brazilian scouting network, so he's going to have to. He's going to have to link us to some players over there. Good evening to you, Ralph. I hope you're well. Thank you for tuning in, mate. Much appreciated. Ralph again. Trudge, maybe we're getting a Brazilian manager. Wow. Do you know any good Brazilian managers? Oh, what's his name? Scamacca. I was going to say Scamacca. Oh, I can't remember his name. Anyway, bee's knees. Unless we score 1 or 2 early goals, I see it's going to be a long day at the office. I agree. I do agree with you there as well. Good evening, Eamon. If we got balls cutting through our defence, then it's not our defence starting slow or our tactics are wrong, because we obviously ain't cutting the passing lanes out to be. Really good point, which I was going to make. And thank you for reminding me. You know, I talked about our defence looks pretty decent. You know, yet we are conceding these silly goals. And you're absolutely right. It's balls cutting through cutting through. What's going on with our midfield? Maybe it's our midfield that's slightly wrong. Maybe we need a bit more Souček. But seriously, you know, our defense is actually all right. But you're absolutely spot on there, Eamon. We've got to cut out that ball before it actually gets to our defensive line. Garino, Luzao has looked decent for the under-21s, but it is the under-21s. Fair enough. I'm glad you updated me on that, because I haven't really had time to watch much of that. Eamon, Man City will tear us a new one if our midfield starts slow or is outmanned. I agree. Scarborough, good evening to you, mate. Lozao was excellent against Fulham, won countless headers like a magnet. I'm really good to be hearing that. I'm really glad to be hearing that. Sorry, Steve. Ogbonna and Cresswell, 2 grandads. Look, I know, but Oggy, let's give him credit where credit's due. You know, he had what could have been at his age a career-ending injury, and he's come back, and he's come back at a time when we really need him, and he's been really decent in central defence. You know, we're playing to his strength. In a way, you kind of understand why Moyes is playing 3 at the back, because with the greatest of respect to Ogbonna and maybe to Kera as well, you know, having them as a 2 at the back could be quite might open us up a little bit. But having 3 at the back, maybe that's he's playing to the strength of the squad that he's got. Having said that, he should have got players in January. Garino, defense is an issue. Only Kera has any pace against Kane and Song. I agree with regards to Ogbonna, without a doubt. With regards to Cresswell, without a doubt as well. But that's where our midfielders come into play and try and shield that defence as well. Steve, Souček, Trudge. Souček would make a good central defender. Interesting comment. Paul, next 2 games are highly winnable. Won't stay up with draws. I do agree. I did try and do the calculations. We've got 14 odd games left or whatever. Could we stay up with 14 more draws? We won't be enough, will it? Steve, like I said the other week, Ogbonna, Cresswell, Antonio, Fabianski, in my opinion, should all go in the summer. I don't disagree. I think Ogbonna's been a fantastic player for us, but we cannot keep relying on these players who are getting older and older. They're not going to be able to deliver week in, week out. Cresswell, I agree. We should have bought a left back two years ago. Without a doubt. Antonio, we should have bought another striker 2 years ago and waited until Scamacca came in. Fabianski, like I said, I think he's done brilliantly for us this season. He's been surprisingly very good, very consistent and very solid. But I agree again. We cannot rely on these aged players without a doubt. Jerry, I think we should play Antonio behind Scamacca if he's fit. He has pace and could run at defences instead of holding the ball up and turning and making his own chances. That's a good shout. It's an interesting shout. Yeah, I like that. Ralph, we start defensive as always. Off slow, Spuds will be 2 up by half time. I honestly think that. I don't disagree with you, to be honest with you. If we start defensively, if we start slow as a whole team, we could concede a goal, just like we have done in the last couple of games early on. Stella, style of football this season has been awful. I don't disagree. You know, I thought earlier in the season was all about betting players in, you know, listening to what people were saying, Moyes, etc. And now it's got to the point of Now we've got ourselves in a corner, haven't we? Where we have no choice but to play the way we're currently playing. That's the problem. Whereas we could have done it differently at the beginning of the season, we didn't. And now we're in the situation where we kind of had to play almost turgid style football in order to stay in games. It's not pleasant, without a doubt. David, Spurs got a European game tomorrow night as well. Yes, they have. Someone mentioned that earlier on. Do forgive me if I don't put up all your comments. I do apologise. I'm trying to get through them as best I can. Eamon, ironically, I think Pac being out might do us a favour, as we'll be able to cut out the passing lanes and we'll have more of a steal in midfield. Paqueta is still a bit too lightweight for the Premier League at the moment. It's an interesting comment because he does get his foot in there. He's not shy of a tackle or two, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. But then who would you have, though, to replace Paqueta? A lot of people want Downs. I don't think Downs will play. I'd love Downs to play, but I think it will be Souček alongside Declan at the weekend. Garino, not sure about that. Paqueta puts in a lot of, there you go, tough tackles. The pace of the Premier League is just adjusting, but getting there, in my opinion. So I think he does. It was Scaloni I was thinking of. Thank you. And he's Argentinian, not Brazilian. There you go. Eamon, Paqueta puts, there you go, tackles in, but he also falls over a lot, as well as gets knocked off the ball easy. Rice also seems to get knocked off the ball recently as well. That poor lad did have a virus and then went to the Brit Awards in the evening. Jonathan, why don't we just park the bus and just have Fabianski take pot shots from our end of the pitch in the hope of getting one? What a great tactic. I'm going to, boy, Moisey, Jonathan has just said, stop it. We're bad, but we're not that bad. Jerry, I think Souček and Soufal are slowly getting better since the World Cup. Good shout. They did lose their form. Players do lose form. But, when players lose form in other teams, they get dropped, whereas Moyes took forever to drop Souček. Garino, God Bonner, the Ogfather, his experiences are valuable to us at the moment. I 100% agree with you. No, I was talking about Scaloni and not Dunga. Simon, the Brazilian, let's get your comment up. There you go. The Brazilian that wowed me was my missus in my Di Canio shirt. Listen, that's not for you to share, Simon. Trini, Oggie's been good since he's been back. Not sure what people expect from him. I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been superb for us without a shadow of a doubt. Like I said earlier on, an injury like that at the age that he was at could have finished him, could have finished his career. But he's come back and he's, you know what? He goes about his business quietly, like people have said. His experience is absolutely invaluable at the moment. Credit where credit's due to him. He's been a fantastic servant to West Ham United. English Yardie, if we want to play possession-based football, Souček can't be in the starting lineup. It needs to be Downs or Lanzini, even Fornals. Not sure why Moyes has Rice with Paqueta. Makes no sense. I see the Rice and Paqueta formation actually working quite well, to be honest with you. I think they've begun to have a bit of an understanding. I think it's been okay. But look, I agree. Look, I know what people think of Souček, but I think it will be him that will start. And will it be possession based? Well, no, it won't. I think what we'll try and do is get a hit and run at the weekend. Razor, true, we will still be West Ham, whatever division, but we must try our best to stay up, and that means getting rid of this dreadful coach and tactics as soon as possible. I don't disagree with you, but I do know it looks like he's going to be here to the end of the season. We're going to, at this moment in time, it's horrible, but we're keeping our heads just above water, aren't we? And that's what's keeping Moyes there. We go on a run of defeats, then maybe, but will it be then too late? Jonathan, we won't get into a foot race with Kane or Song. We park the bus. Well, yeah, there's that. But if there is anyone with pace, I think it was mentioned earlier, Kehrer does have pace. Trini, Kane has no pace. Son and Kulishevsky are their dangerous players. Good shout. Daniela, OGG wants to retire at West Ham. Oggy wants to retire at West Ham, I read. He does. I don't know if he'll be, unless this is his last season playing football. I don't know if he'll get a new contract, to be honest with you. Garino, excuse me. Still, our midfield shield only works if we play a tight defensive line with no intent to attack. Versus Chelsea, we got cut open with a high line. Good comment. Bees Knees. Oggy's a great player. We don't lose very often when he plays, but it's going to be hard without Aguerd and Zuma. Absolutely. But like I said, this is speculating that if those players don't come back, and if those of you who haven't caught up with the injury news so far, just to recap, Areola's back, so you can forget him. He's back. Zuma, he was seen in compression boots over the weekend, so it's not likely that he'll be back for the game against Spurs. Possibly against Nottingham Forest, but I would probably say it'll be the game after that, which is the Man United game or the league game against Brighton. Cornet, we've heard nothing. We don't know what's going on with him. Scamacca will be back training this week, which is good. Someone actually mentioned Zuma's back training on grass, which was news to me. But if he is, I still don't know if it will be. We'll never know. He might surprise us. He might be back in time. I'm not so sure, though. Scamacca, back training this week as well. Aguerd, we believe that the injury is not too serious. And if it's anything like Kera's potential hamstring injury, a couple of days rest should see him okay. And then Paqueta is probably the bigger concern. And if it's anything like the injury that he had earlier in the season, he could be out for about 3 games. Let's get rid of that thing. Ray, good evening to you, mates. We are 5th best for goals conceded and 5th worst for goals scored. Played 2 up front. Yeah, we said that earlier, mate. You know, we are good for, we've got, ironically, even though people have been saying we get cut open quite easily. But yeah, we are 5th best for goals conceded, but we're just not scoring enough up front. I agree. Garino. If our defence is missing due to injuries, play Rice at centre-back and bring in Downs alongside Sojek for Fornals in midfield. Good shout. Yeah, I like that. Will Moyes do it? Probably not. But that is a good shout. Yeah, I agree with that. Trudge. We always play bad football when we play this formation. We do, but this is what we're going to have to probably put up with for the rest of the season. Mark, why is it we play better after we go a goal down? Talked about this earlier in the show. Do not know. I don't think we're mentally prepared for the start of the match, and this has to be down to Moyes' tactics. It's interesting because I thought much the same, and I looked at the stats throughout the whole season. And of the 27 goals we've conceded, 26, 27 goals we've conceded this season in the Premier League, we've only conceded 8 in the first 20 minutes. I thought it was a lot higher. It feels like it should be a lot higher. But interestingly, we've literally in the first 20 to 22 minutes of each game in the Premier League this season, we've only conceded 8 of those 27 goals. And the rest of the goals, we went through a spell where we were conceding late on in the game, you know, against Palace and other teams, etc. But otherwise, they've been cut, you know, all the other goals we conceded have been spread quite evenly. But I thought much the same. I thought it's like we keep starting badly. We're conceding early, but only 8 throughout the whole season. Maybe it's because we've conceded early goals in the last couple of games that our mindset thinks that we're conceding early all the time. But I thought, like you, and that's why I looked at the stats, I thought, Christ, we're conceding early goals all the time. But I was surprised it's only 8 goals. Mind you, 8 is 8 too many, to be honest with you. Garino versus Spurs. Just put Lanzini on 30 yards out and everyone shout Lanzini. It'd be like our quarterback. Did anyone watch the game, the Super Bowl the other night? Quite good, actually. But yes, put him on for the last 10 seconds of the game and watch him smash one in the top in the corner. Steve, we will not see Cornet this season. I believe the club are holding back, telling us he is out for the season. They might be. It's quite possible he might be out for the season, but I think Moyes has kind of said, I don't know what's going on. And that really is unusual because Moyes normally keeps his mouth shut. Guy Valentine, good evening to you. West Ham needs to use 7 cup and we will win. 7 cup goal. Someone else knows exactly what that means. So enlighten me. Thank you for it, Guy, but you've lost me. I don't understand it. But someone else is going to enlighten me, or you might enlighten me. Sharky, when will the Newcastle game be rearranged? It's been 5 months since the original date. You know what? I do not know. That's a good question. And with Europe coming up as well, it's going to be even even more difficult to do it. I really do not know. It's interesting. Nothing's been said about any of those games that have been postponed. Jabba, good evening to you. Aguerd is the best signing this year, no doubt. No doubt at all. I think he's been absolutely fantastic for us, and I totally agree. Simon, what about that VAR decision? Payback for earlier this season? Do not care. Be quite honest with you. Chelsea fans are moaning like hell. Do not care, quite frankly. I think it was the best save of the day. Souček in goal, I think. Razor, thank you very much. I'm always positive. You know me, Razor. Always with a smile on my face, always positive. You got to be positive. Life's too short. Fuck all that nonsense, being miserable shit. Daniela, if we say Moyes out, who's to come in? We have now got to wait till the end of the season when more managers become free. Yeah, we are. Moyes is going to be here to the end of the season, whether we like it or not. And I know a lot of you don't like it, and I totally understand that. But it looks like we are going to be with Moyes at the end of the season. He will have 1 year left on his contract. It'll be interesting to see what the board will decide to do at the end of the season. Anthony, Cornet's hairdresser has seen more of him. Paul, offside rules will stop goal hanging, not to check if your big toes are off. VAR and this, like, you're a hair's breadth away from being offside. How annoying is it? I almost want to go, well, not almost, I do want to go back to the old days when the ref gets it wrong. At least we've got one person to blame. You got it wrong, ref. You're an absolute etc. Rather than VAR making us sit there and wait. The goal, the disallowed goal, Souček goal, they're waiting and wait. I mean, it's either offside, it's a clear cut or not. If it's not clear cut, bloody give it. It would have been, that would have been the icing on the cake. Not only a Souček handball in the area, but if they'd given our goal as well, wouldn't that have been justice, eh? Wouldn't that have been justice? English Yardie, I'm done with Zuma. He's always hurt, makes no sense. Leicester scored 4 goals against the Spuds. We can do the same, but Moyes doesn't have that in his bag. Spuds can be beaten. We saw that with what Leicester did. They can be beaten. And I do agree. You know, sometimes we just go for it. You know, but we know what Moyes is like against certain teams. Will he go for it against... I'd like to think he will. But he probably won't. Jonathan, I hope Moyes gets another 4-year contract extension so we can keep dreaming about how we might line up for knowing it will be the same team as the last time. You are a glutton for punishment. Trodge, we got lucky so many times, even when they didn't score, though. Steve, Stell, your hair is like Virgil's from under. It's a bit short. It was a little bit shorter than I thought it would be. Yeah, that's all right. It grows out. My hair grows really quick. Trodge, slow starters, pretty much every Premier League game. Is that carrying on from what you said? I'm going to have to join it together. We got lucky so many times, even when they didn't score. Those slow starters, pretty much every Premier League game this season. You're making me work hard tonight, Trodge. Usual suspect. It'll be more by luck than skill if we avoid relegation. Honestly, I kind of don't care so long as we avoid it. I don't care if it's by luck, by skill, by balls coming off Antonio's arse, going into the goal. So long as we avoid it, I won't, you know, and then we'll be able to recap and then look at the season of just how shit it has been, and then you know, start again for next season. I don't care if we get all the luck in the world to stay up. Fine by me. Flemmer, Moyes will only play for 1 point for every game. He will drop any player that scores the winner of the game versus Tottenham. He will place 11 defensive players. Ralph, Jonathan will literally stop watching West Ham for the first time in 55 years if Moyes stays 4 more years. Black Country, more like Joe Nye with those glasses. Nothing wrong with my glasses. I'll sell them to you if you want. I'm going to go and get my eyes checked tomorrow. I know I'm needing you pair. Daniela, have to say, nice show tonight. Thank you very much. Tried to listen to the Clout and Booze Boys last night. God, they were depressed. Each to their own. I know, look, actually, now that you mentioned them, look, I know people have really strong opinions, you know, and you know what I'm like. I'll read and I'll listen to any opinions, but let's try and keep it kind of, I'm not saying you, Daniela, by the way, but when we talk about others, whether it be another channel or to each other, etc., try and keep it Nice. Yeah, don't get personal. I think there were one or I didn't see them myself, but I was made aware there were one or two maybe slightly personal comments in the last show I did. Razor, Daniela, any other coach to the end of the season will be better than Moyes. Just give them short contracts to the end of the season. It ain't. I love you, Razor, but it ain't gonna happen. To be honest, Eamon, if it's 8 early goals in 20 games, that is what still way too much, as it means we're conceding. No, I don't. Well, 40% of the games. Just doing my maths. I don't think you're right. You might be right. No, I did say. I agree with you. It's still too many, but I thought it was actually more. Mark, we might have missed this still, but we have offered Johnson a better contract. No, didn't miss it because I know that came out. Now, the situation with Ben Johnson is quite simple. At the end of last season, the negotiating a contract, nothing was agreed. So we triggered his 2-year extension. So he's on a 2-year extension. At the end of this season, he'll have 1 year left. And now we are going to start talking to him about extending his contract. I'm not sure. I saw that somewhere. I think it's a bit early because I was told the conversations won't start again until the end of the season rather than now. But absolutely, I think I like Johnson. I think he's a decent player. And I like him to stay. Definitely. Jerry, I didn't celebrate Soucek's goal or no goal. I watched Pawson and can see so. Pawson, what a poor son he is. Daniela, Razor, Deitch just got put back in. Deitch just got put back in the long ball box. Oh, so he's playing to type. Oh, imagine playing in that system. How would you like that? Back to Allardyce days. Anthony, still could be the Fonz's dad from Happy Days. That's good. It's the funny hour now, isn't it? We're getting to that point. Razor, new owners end of the season will no way keep Moyes here. KRETINSKY already getting more involved and got feeling he will become major shareholder. Let me update you on that. I did a show this morning to talk about the apparently, from what I read, because I don't make things up myself. Apparently, from what I read, KRETINSKY was at the stadium at the weekend talking to the LLDC, who run the stadium and the Olympic Park on behalf of the mayor and the government. And I said there was speculation that he was talking to the LLDC about buying out the stadium. I've since been told that that's not true. I've actually seen a text message, who I can't say who it is, that he wasn't at the stadium. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not had conversations, but I just find it interesting, and I'm speculating. Why would he want to buy the stadium? Why? What reason would he want? And in the show I did earlier today, I said probably more as a business venture and more likely to have it, maybe to protect West Ham, so we could actually do what we want with it. Now we've only got use of it for 20 times this season, 19 times a season, and then we got to abide by athletics being played there, etc., etc. And given that the LLDC will cease to exist at the end of 2024, we don't know what's going to happen to the stadium thereafter. So probably better to have ownership of it than to allow someone else to buy it. And then maybe, we've got an airtight contract with the stadium for the 99-year lease that was agreed. No one's going to be able to break that, whoever owns it. And no one can raise our rent to an extortionate amount, whoever owns it. But I just sort of speculated as to why KRETINSKY might want to have the stadium. And the only thing I could think of is potentially, with all his business interests, could be a potential business, another business for him. Now, I know the stadium is losing money as it is at the moment, but that's speculation because it's not being run correctly. Properly run, even West Ham don't want to own the stadium, but they've always said that they would like to run. They like to run the operations side because there is money to be made if it's run properly. Now, whether you like the board or not, one of the things that they are good at, they're good at business. They've not been good at the footballing side of West Ham United, but they've certainly been good at business. And they could probably make it work. And maybe that's why KRETINSKY is interested. Now, will he buy West Ham United? I know there's a lot of speculation going around. I'm still not sure because I also said in the show earlier today that he's been interviewed several times and he's said quite clearly he's not willing to let go of his involvement in Sparta Prague. He's got a 40% stake in Sparta Prague and he'll have to relinquish that. He'll have to let go of the control element in order to buy West Ham out. It doesn't look like he wants to do it. So it does seem that Kretinsky is still looking at West Ham United as just another business interest. Will other people come in for West Ham? Don't know. Like I said earlier in the show, Sullivan seems to want to hold on. The Gold family have indicated that they'll probably hold on to the shares for at least another couple of years anyway. So there is this speculation, and I know there's all this rumor about the Qataris coming in and buying up land around Olympic Park, but they're buying up real estate. They're buying up land. Will they want to own the stadium? I don't see I don't know. Could they make a business out of it? Maybe in the same light as Kretinsky. I don't know. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Qatari money coming in to that part of London necessarily means that they will buy West Ham United. Now, the only other one is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Now, we know Ratcliffe wants to buy Man United. Now, there was a story today, I don't know if it's true. Elon Musk is interested in Man U. I don't know if you've seen that, but I don't know if that's any element of truth or not. But if Ratcliffe doesn't get Man United for the price he wants, I think he's set a limit at 6 billion, hasn't he? Fuck me, 6 billion. God. Anyway, he's set a limit. And if he doesn't get it, he might well turn his attention to other Premier League clubs. He has an interest in buying a Premier League club. Who could be, there are one or two that could be quite lucrative for him. And if he's willing to spend 6 billion on Man U, I'm sure he'll spend 800 million on West Ham United. And that 800 million might just be enough for Sullivan to go, I'm out. Maybe. But it's all speculation at the moment. We're speculating. And because of the clause in the current contract terms that end at the end of March, where the current board would have had to pay a tax levy if they sold West Ham before March 2023, that goes. So I guess a lot of people are speculating, well, there's no more tax levy on any sale, and now David Gold has passed away. Of course, it's going to be sold. Sullivan's going to sell up. I'm just still not so sure, to be quite honest with you. Sorry, long answer to your short comment there. Mark, when we are down to one fit defender, do you think Moyes will set up to attack more? No, he'll just convert an attacker into a defender. Danny, yes, mate. I need you at the back. Antonio, what? Right back, please. You played there when you first came here. Trini, even the greatest teams and winners of regular silverware have luck at some stage. They do. We deserve a bit of luck, don't we? Let's scroll down. Good evening, Patrick. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Can I have a recap, please? All right, I'll give you a recap very, very, very quickly. Let's scroll all the way to the back. Here's your recap, and it's going to be bloody fast. So, I did a little bit about Jack Leslie, and it's an intriguing story. First black player to be called up by England, never got to play because they withdrew the offer. Brilliant at Plymouth. He then became Hammers. He then worked under Ron Greenwood in the Hammers boot room, and he was made put in the National Football Museum's Hall of Fame at the weekend, which was presented at the weekend before the Chelsea game. The women's team lost 7-0. The under-18s fell to a rare defeat, 3-1 against Chelsea. And Barmer keeps scoring 1-0 against Fulham. And apparently someone told me that it looked like an Antonio goal where he kind of I don't know, it wasn't brilliant. Another soft goal against Chelsea in our starts. We seem to be doing that quite often. I think Kera plus a number of players had a pretty decent performance. Souček handball, best save of the day. Vlasic in action against AC Milan. They lost 90 minutes for Conor Coventry. Third game in a row that he's played for Rotherham without defeat. Jacob Knightbridge is leading a double life because he's not only playing for Harrow Borough on loan, non-league team. Someone tell me, how does that work? And he's also being called up for the under-21 teams at the under-21 West Ham team at the weekend. I didn't know you could do that. Odubeko, cameo role for Port Vale. Thierry Nevers got booked in the 1 minute that he played for Bradford City. Scamacca's back in training. Aguerd, hamstring injury. We don't think it's going to be too serious, and he might be back at the weekend. Paqueta looks a little bit more serious. Could be out for 3 weeks. That's the compression boot for Kurt Zuma. He ain't going to be back on Saturday. And Ariola's back, though. He was in training. There you go. How? Is that good enough for you, mate? Right. Let's scroll down. Jerry, I knew Souček's goal would be ruled out. So I saw Pawson listening to someone in his earpiece. It took so long for VAR to rule it out. It ruins the game. Absolutely does. NWO. Stell's the only one person who... I read all your comments. You know, good, bad, indifferent. I read all your comments. Steve. And thank you for doing so. It keeps me on my toes. Steve, seems to be a lot of the YouTube channels lately. Thought we're all... Let's not get into it, mate. Honestly, it's a little bit boring. Andy, well said, Paul. Their show was excellent last night. I didn't watch it, so I don't know. Razor, Daniela Deitch, I don't look like will keep Everton up at least. Moyes will relegate us as shown time with Sunderland left them with that. Don't think we'll go down. I know it ain't going to be pleasant, but I really don't. I don't think we're going to go down. John, not looking forward to the Spuds game. They're bigger whingers than my first 3 wives put together. Good evening, Si. Need to keep Johnson very versatile. I agree. I think he's a decent player. David M. Still, with your glasses, you should be saying, and it's good night from me and it's good night for him. How many of you know who he's talking about? I bet there's not a lot that I don't know, actually. Probably got an older audience than I think. Jabba. Ben Rama has been terrible lately. We should have got another winger on the transfers. The problem is offensively, the defense is decent now. Defense is decent. Ben Rama's been off the ball. Can't disagree with that. But where's Fornals? Jonathan, we can't play long ball as all our players are in our box. That is very true. Trini, Everton don't look any better. You know what? There's always a team that starts to nosedive. You know, and you look at the table at the moment, you think, oh yeah, they're safe. People were saying last week that Nottingham Forest was safe. They're not that far away from where we are at the moment. And I don't think they're safe. I think there's going to be a team that might take a little bit of a nosedive, you know, and I think a team like Everton, Leeds, maybe, I think Southampton are done. I think Bournemouth are probably, you know, I don't think they're going to get out of it. And then you've got a choice of 4 or 5 teams, and we're in the thick of it. And I just wonder, Everton, you know, they've got away with it for a past couple of seasons. David, don't want you to go yet. I've got to go at some time. You know, oh God, I used to do these shows 3 hours. Definitely don't do that anymore, do we? What we got? Jerry, interesting show. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Martin, all teams get injuries, use the squad and youth players. It might come a point. There might come a point where any more injuries and we'll be calling in the under 15s, for God's sake. Still would make a good one. Don't think I would. NWO, demolish it, build flats. Where will we play? Hackney Marshes. Let's go and play on Hackney Marshes. John, has Conte resigned again after that Leicester game? Well, he's in hospital, isn't he? He's recovering. So it's I don't think he'll moan though. Christ, he moans. Fucking hell, does he moan? Martin, points prediction for the end of the season. We're 20 points from 22 games, 38 points I'm going for. And even then I'll start shitting myself. Lernstick. How can the EOS be a good business deal if we haven't gone next level? Well, that's a question. You're absolutely right, of course, but that's a question for the owners, isn't it? It's a good business deal in terms of the our accounts. Our accounts are healthy, you know. So in that respect, it's good. I did say though, footballing wise, we haven't been great. So when you look at it as a business overall, you know, not having the bowling and paying all the money out to keep that going, etc., and moving from that to moving to a place for £3 million a year or whatever we pay, like it or not, it's good business sense. On the footballing side of things, if we were as good at doing that as we have been doing, looking after the balance sheet, then we'd have been a lot further forward than we currently are. So I agree. Business-wise, we look fine. But unfortunately, when it comes to the footballing side of things, a little bit too little too late. Anthony, 35 points, so other 3 times need less for us to stay up. 35 points won't keep us up. It won't. It will go down, to be honest with you. Let's scroll down. Razor, Trini, if it wasn't Liverpool they were playing, then they will pick up points. Deitch will keep them up, unlike Moyes with us. I don't know. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. Sharky, Qataris are rumoured to be buying Man United. Oh, yes, apparently they're now interested in Man U as well. God, sell your soul. Well, okay, let me ask you guys a question. We can keep this show going a bit longer. Let me ask you guys a question. Okay, look, we know what the owners are like, no doubt. You know, we know the promises they made, etc., etc. We all know about that. How would you all feel, in all honesty? You know, we talk about, you know, we're not West Ham anymore. We've moved out of the Boleyn, etc., etc. How would you guys feel if, say, the Qataris bought us out and just threw money at us? What would we still be West Ham? Would we be happy? You know, you look at Man City, who are kind of like, they're winning everything, great, but they're kind of soulless team, aren't they? A soulless sort of like team. And any team that gets bought out, look at PSG over in France, etc., etc. How will our tradition be completely wiped out if we were bought out by, say, the Qataris who threw money at us? So how would you feel? Yes, we'll be a lot safer. Yeah, we'll have the best players playing for us and we'll be winning things, no doubt. But will that be West Ham? Will selling our souls be worth it? I don't know. I'm torn with it. You know, because I want to see us be a successful team. You know, but I guess there's a bit of a traditional person in me that wants us to do it the old-fashioned way. But the old-fashioned way doesn't work, does it? Because if you don't throw money at something, you're not going to get anywhere. Would you be happy with, say, Qataris buying the board out and then completely losing our meaning, our tradition completely? I don't know. You tell me. You tell me, Martin. Who's the alternative to Moyes, and would they have time to turn things around? Probably too late. Anthony, Glazers want 6 billion. Ratcliffe offered them 4.5, I think, but Qatar may pay the asking price. It's nothing to them. A piss in the ocean, isn't it? You know, 6 billion to the Qataris. Hammer Mulder, afternoon. Good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. David M. With what happens to Man City, does it affect any takeovers? That's a good question. I don't know. Well, probably not. Probably not, because until they tighten up ownership, who owns a football club, this will just continue. You know, and there'll be other loopholes that any a richer billionaire to the ones before will find. They'll find loopholes. They'll get their lawyers to find loopholes in order to cheat their way to winning things. Ralph, Daniela, it's a lot easier to sort someone else's mess than when you've got yourself into that mess in the first place. You're talking about Moyes. Good evening to you, Andy. How are you? Ralph, spot on. And you know my feelings about Moyes. Daniela, there's some doubt if the Qataris want outright ownership, and the Glazers are saying they still might want part ownership, or now they win. Wow, they want to. Not only do they want their money, they still want to own it as well, or part own it. Good evening to you, Neil. How are you? From the replays, Anthony, it was nowhere near his knee. Are we talking about Souček's brilliant save? English Yardy. KRETINSKY, is it possible he could be working for a Qatarian consortium as well as doing West Ham business? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. Possible. We know that he's brought a I can't remember, I did a show on it several weeks ago, I think maybe during the World Cup, where KRETINSKY's brought a guy in who looks at deals and mergers and all that sort of stuff, who now sits on the board on his behalf. And it's possible he may be working for a consortium to buy out West Ham. Yeah, didn't think of that. Good. Yeah, all right. You all got it. Two Ronnies. Yeah, good question. I don't know the answer. Jonathan. Forest can't see the woods and trees. Mark. Stell, was it you that not the Chelsea fan? No, it wasn't. I mean, I've seen the look. No, I better not. I'll get in trouble. Neil, KRETINSKY could buy the Olympic Stadium as a separate business venture without it affecting his part of the ownership. This is what I said earlier today. I actually finished off that video this morning by saying just that. You know, at the moment, yes, KRETINSKY's on the board of West Ham United. He's a part owner and all that sort of stuff. He could buy the stadium as a separate entity. You know, at the moment, they're both separate. They are separate entities. You know, just because he sits on the board doesn't necessarily mean he's buying it on behalf of West Ham. He could buy it as a separate business venture. Totally agree. That's what I said in the show this morning. Razor, love these people saying Moyes can turn it around, yet been in relegation form with him since December. Well, no. let's be honest. He came in when we were in trouble, got us out of it. We've had 2 good seasons, but we're now back in trouble. So we haven't been in relegation form since the time he arrived. John Murdoch. Villa ain't clear of trouble and Palace are still in doo-doo. Exactly, mate. And you might see one of those teams dropping. You never know. Thank you. Seriously, I don't expect that, but honestly and truly, include inflation as well. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Neil, bullshit, Anthony. And if it did hit his knee, all the commentators would have said so, but I haven't heard anyone say so. I don't know what Anthony said, but look, I don't care. It wasn't given. So there you are. Mark, Stel was, I've been asked that already. David, the only thing West Ham gone the next level is the attendance. 60k is not bad. 6th highest in the Europe, I think. Yeah, it isn't bad at all. Patrick, Stel, my ex is listening, so can you please say hi to my first wife? Hi to Patrick's first wife. I hope you're well. Thank you for watching. Much appreciated. Keith, if I can get your comment up. Nigel saying we'll be in the top 10. I never even realised we released a record. I don't think we'll get in the top 10. Good evening to you, Henry. How are you? Thank you for joining, mate. Martin, Stella, have I... What? Would love us to win the league in my lifetime. I ain't got long left. We're not winning. We're not. Unless we win the championship if we go down. Other than that, we're not winning the league. Flameur, we will be, but we will win a cup. Flameur, we before I die, I hope as well. We will be West Ham if Qatar buy West Ham, building a football stadium and a decent manager to start with. Do you think so? Peter, I would prefer the Red Bull. Strange, isn't it? You know, and ironically, fans of Red Bull teams hate the Red Bull model. Interesting. Trini, in all honesty, we would become one of the plastic teams with a worldwide plastic fan base. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm that's what I've the future I have in my head if we're bought out by Qataris. Sharky, just want to win trophies. That's fair enough. Black Country, still, we've already lost our home, so anything else doesn't really matter. Our souls. Patrick, success will not success, but not at any price. Let's carry on regardless. Anthony, no, I don't want our core beliefs destroyed any more than has been done already by leaving the Boleyn in a rental. So yeah, you know, it's interesting. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? You know, the Qataris buy you out or buy West Ham out. And then what? You know, soulless, plastic fans, etc., etc. You know, we become worldwide. We'll have, you know, a coach load of, I don't know, Japanese tourists turning up, taking over a whole part of a stand, etc., all sitting there politely and clapping. No, I'm doing them a disservice. They might swear and shout like we do. Martin, still, you're right. The old-fashioned way doesn't work anymore, but I hate the alternatives. This is it. What we're caught in this this money-making environment. It will never work. You know, this whole Europa Super League, in a way, I kind of say to myself, let them go and have it so we can get back to real football, you know, a level playing field. There'll be less money, but every team will be in that same boat. You know, there'll be less money around, you know, when the Chelseas and the Arsenals, etc., go and play in their Super League. Let them have it. How boring will that get? You know, and then that might be the way back to normal football, maybe. Jonathan, of course, we will be West Ham. We'll be moaning even with Messi in our team. Can't see it too different from today. Not playing the youth. At least they know how to do service, so we'll expect it to be better. Let's scroll down. Bees Knees. Qataris will want to behead the... We are in the funny hour. We really are now. Schmiegel, if Qataris don't want West Ham, then ring the Kuwaitis. Their investment fund is worth more than the cards car. I'm glad you see the positives out of it. Foe, Qatari owners, yeah, we definitely lose our identity. We'd become organised, respected, feared on the continent, and win trophies. There you go. Yeah, some people don't mind it. Trini, the highest average last season, only Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Man United had more. That is true. The Bees Knees, they need to sell binoculars at the O's to watch the match and install loudspeakers for atmosphere so the players can hear the roar. You know what? It ain't that bad. I mean, well, not where I am anyway. Trini, 4th highest average across Europe last season, only Barca, etc. Martin, Could we rebuild the ground within the stadium? Maybe ground share with Orient. Why would we want a ground share with Orient? Uh, um, no, and we can't. Apparently, we can't go. Apparently, is it the moat or whatever the water around it? We can't go lower. So we can only go. I don't know. I keep looking at every time I go there. I think I'm a fucking architect, and I keep looking at thinking, how can we do it? How can we do it? We'd just have to strip it out inside. Keep the shell and find a way. There are ways. I'm sure there are ways. Peter, we are already worldwide. The foreigners are already turning up in their thousands. There you go. Someone's not happy about it. Trini, the Bundesliga has the right model. All teams are majority owned by fans and fans' interest groups. Yeah, that won't happen though, will it? With all the money in the Premier League. Martin, relegation and Conference Cup or stay up and fuck Europe? Oh. I want to win a cup, but I don't want to get relegated. I'll probably say stay up and fuck Europe. What I've said before is, finish, just avoid relegation and win the Europa Conference. Relegation and conference might be a little bit too much for me. Mark, let the top six go in the Super League, then sell to Qataris and dominate the Premier League and then become as bad as they are. Daniela, the old Wembley was just as bad for sightline. That is true. That is true. And Newcastle away, when you're at the top of that stadium, is not much better either. Let me tell you. Martin, if I can get your comment up. Apparently come back to training and caught a virus crossing the canal. Who has? English Yardy. Still, the world of sport is changing. Look at golf. Did you see what PSG did? They play an exhibition match in Saudi Arabia during League One season. Oh, there you go. That's what will happen. And we'll have games. We'll have Premier League games going to America or going to the Far East to be played. Wow. Anthony, the people coming to Dover only come to get a West Ham season ticket. I hate the plastic fan phrase still. West Ham need to grow our fan base internationally. We need to make more money commercially to buy. Look, it's a joke, but quite possibly we will have a lot more fans if we did sell out, I guess. Good evening, Claret and Booze. Build a stadium within the stadium with a steep rake close to the pitch to create an intimate venue and have the world's biggest concourse for food, beverages. And can that be done? I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Can that be done? Build a stadium within the stadium with a steep rake close to the pitch to create an intimate venue and have the world's biggest concourse for food and beverage. Interesting. And this is the last comment. Dortmund, Union Berlin, Red Bull Leipzig. Should I go on? No, we know. You're calling me Stella again, Martin. Thank you for tonight's show. In spite of the adversity, West Ham fans we do have a great sense of humour, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you all very much. Really much appreciated for all your comments and your humour and your lightheartedness. Much appreciated. We've done 2 hours. That's enough for me because my throat is really dry. I'll be back during the week with some other shows, when there's some news to tell you about. And no Friday night show, though. That's done once every 2 weeks, but I'm sure I'll be back with other things as well. Thank you all for watching. Really much appreciated. Have a wonderful week. Let's look forward to the Spurs game. There'll be a few shows between now and then. We'll win. I hope we'll win. Might get a draw. Who knows? We won't lose. Have a great week, and I'll see you all very soon.